So, this is the third video, and this is the last one that I'm doing for Cehbeach. This is the last story that I told to him that he thought that really needed to be told to everyone on YouTube. And again, just like the first video of these, I don't give a fuck. I'll name names. While I was stationed on Fort Lewis in Washington, there was a duty that would come up in my calibration lab every so often, and it was to recertify standards that we used to calibrate equipment with. And in order to do that, these standards had to be checked against higher grade standards. And in the world of calibration, there is a transfer lab, which was what we were, and the next step is a secondary lab, and then there's the primary lab. Okay? The primary lab is normally the National Institute of Standards and Technology, but sometimes there is a primary lab for a certain type of standard, like time, which you might use GPS clocks to get your primary source from. The Navy had a cesium standard and a rubidium clock and stuff like that that they had all in these vaults that they were not with NIST. But NIST was the ones, they were the ones who had like the 1 kilogram bowling ball. It was exactly like 1 kilogram. And anytime somebody wanted to check their weight to see if it was the same weight as that, you know, they had to take it out of its vacuum sealed, you know, case and compare them, and then put the standard back, and then, you know, they'd have a, you know, this weight would be compared to the other weight on the same scale, and they basically every time you get removed another step, the magic ratio here is 1 to 4. The accuracy will basically get 4 times worse every time you go down 1 step. Or at least it's considered to be that. And if not, then it's not traceable, and it's not considered something that you would want to use on equipment. So when you know what tolerance you have when you're measuring something with a piece of equipment, and it says this will measure 1 volt plus or minus like 10 millivolts, you know, with an accuracy of 10 millivolts when you're measuring 1 volt. Basically, the standard that checked that had to be so much more accurate than plus or minus, you know, 10 millivolts. It had to be, you know, into the microvolts. And it exists. But anyways, I was taking a lot of different types of standards, like torque cells and gauge blocks and spectrum analyzers, all sorts of stuff. I would load it all up into the back of a van, and that van would be driven down to Tuele Army Depot. We were the transfer lab, they were the secondary lab. And then all of the secondary lab standards were checked against NIST. Alright, so I take my equipment there on this long road trip. Tuele Army Depot is, I believe, south of Salt Lake City, Utah. Okay, so we're going from Washington. I'll try to place my arms in the right place for you guys to be able to visualize this. Near Tacoma, Washington, driving all the way down to Salt Lake City, because that's the cheapest way the Army had to recertify these standards, was us to pack it all up in a van and drive it down there. A lot cheaper than shipping. So About every 3 months, there would be a trip where at least two of us would have to go. And being a single soldier and not having a family that would be worried about me being gone, not having kids to look after, I would, raise my hand to do it. To me, it was adventure. I like road trips, normally. Well, on one of these occasions, I was paired up with Sergeant Krieg. And Sergeant Krieg, he was of a certain... I'd say it was a charismatic church movement, but he was church shopping when I knew him. He definitely had not chosen the church that was right for him. He would talk about it in the lab all the time, all these different churches he was going to. Funny little side note, what I also remember this guy for was he would make muffins with a recipe that included Metamucil. And they were like... I tried one, and they didn't taste like there was anything wrong with them, but they were basically like the liftoff muffin. Because about 2 hours later, you got to hit the bathroom, because it's like a train going through you. There's so much fiber that he had packed in these muffins. Anyways, Sergeant Krieg, I actually, because I was very interested in different practices of different types of churches, I actually did go to church with him, where he was church shopping so much that he had started going to a church in Gig Harbor. And in order to get to this church, you had to cross the Puget Sound, in order to get to his church. So you had to drive across a bridge. And it was quite a ways away, but to him it was worth it, because that church, in the charismatic fashion of the time, had hired a rock band to basically be their choir. And a lot of people in my generation are wowed by that it's not the choir that we're used to growing up with. Instead, it speaks to the music of us, of our generation, instead of, old choir music. It has a beat to it. So yeah, he was one of those people that was wowed by that. I went to that church and was just like, it is so fail when riffs that would normally cause bodies to gyrate do not get the same reaction, because it would be wrong. You just can't take rock and roll and turn it into Christian music and have me not laugh at it. It's it's hilarious to me. Anyways, especially death metal, like worship God, rah, rah, rah. Say your prayers. Yeah. Anyways, Sergeant Krieg, I was paired up with him to go on my recertification run to Tuele Army Depot, and using his position of authority, first he started by reading a Christian book out loud in the van with me. Just like, he was reading, and reading out loud, not so that he could hear himself read, but so that I could hear it, you know. But then we were taking turns driving, and when it came his turn to drive, he asked me to read from the same book, where he left off. Because it's such an awesome story. Are you into it? You know, we could get through this whole book on this trip. It'd be awesome. That's... And when you're put in that position where somebody who outranks you, who you have to work with every day, who could cause a lot of problems for you because he's the one who signs any sort of counseling statement or monthly counseling statement that you have, when you're put into that position where somebody like that asks you to do something, most oftentimes you're going to do it. Just go along to get along. And I did. And I didn't like it. And in fact, I read so much of that book on this long-ass fucking trip that I lost my voice by the time I got to Tuele Army Depot. I just could not talk anymore because I had read so much of that book out loud. And I was not used to talking that for extended periods of time. So I got out of the Army and a few years passed, and I remembered some of the stories that I had read, because sometimes the Christian imagery of dominionism and apocalyptic visions would come up in a conversation that I would have, and I would recall some of the things that I read. And so I actually later went out and bought this book that he had me read most of, and it's called The Final Battle by Hal Lindsey. Okay? And pretty much the only reason why I own this book is because I'm one of those people that every book that I read, I don't want to sell on Amazon. I don't like read a book and then want to resell it to get some money back. If I read a book, I might later want to reference it when I'm talking about something. So I like to have it in my collection. That goes for every textbook that I had when I was in college. I don't like to sell back my textbooks either, if I think that there's something in them that I might need to be able to recall, or reference, especially since I've been making YouTube videos. So I actually, had to go out and buy this book. And if you guys don't know who Hal Lindsey is, I just read the description off the back. Want to know what hell on earth will be like? Hal Lindsey gives us the best glimpse to date. This book is sure to shock as many people to God as did the late great planet Earth. You couldn't get a better picture of what World War III will be like without being bodily transported into the future. Hal Lindsey has done it once again. The Final Battle is a masterpiece of popular Bible interpretation and news analysis. And if that wasn't enough to make a whole bunch of you just like want to throw up when you heard me read it, my favorite chapter title in this, okay, it's just funny to say it. Chapter 10. 200 million Asians attack. Yeah. So, this is the last of the videos I'm going to do about the indoctrination that I experienced while I was in the Army. At my last duty station, my team chief, he learned that I was an atheist, and he actually started treating me better. You know, it was as if all of the problems that I had had with him before, it was like he was shocked that I would just openly admit to being an atheist, and he started talking with me about Christianity, and it was like he didn't expect much out of me after that. As long as I did the whole go along to get along thing, and tried to nod my head whenever he would be teaching some sort of Christian tenet, he basically thought, well, this guy, all these other soldiers, they're a Christian, so I'm going to hold them to this standard. But this guy, he's trying, he's not even a Christian yet, so let's not push him too hard, We'll just give him a couple Christian lessons, and then if he shows up to work with his boots shiny, we'll just quit messing with him so much, because we might scare him away from God. So I have to say that the last 6-7 months I spent in the Army before my ETS, my atheism actually was not a negative. I did feel like being an out atheist at that point, it was not going to help my military career, but I already knew that I was not going to re-enlist, and at that point I did not give a fuck. I think it's it's more than kind of important. If you are in a position where it's not going to affect you, and you can be out as far as what your beliefs are, I think it's important that you don't try to pass. That you just state what you are. Don't just blend in. Because it helps empower those people who have to pass. Because there are situations where, people do need to blend in, or else they will be attacked. And it helps empower them the more people just come out and say, hey, no, I'm not whatever you are, and I will not stand for any bigotry against what I am, because you believe that what you are is superior to what I am. And that's a big reason why I am so outspoken on my own YouTube channel. Because I feel like I have the ability to be open about it, and so many people don't. When I was in the Army, this was a 6-year span from 1997 to 2003. While I was in, there was no ordering your dog tags with the word atheism or atheist on them. There's 4 lines on the dog tags. The 4th line was, what are your religious preferences should you die and they have to bury you? The best that I could get while I was serving was no religious preference. That was it. Now, you've got Wiccans, you've got Satanists, you've got agnostic, atheist, pretty much whatever you want to put on your dog tags. That you just have to remember, if you do die and they look at your dog tag and it says that, that's, how they're going to think that you want to be buried. Don't make a joke out of it. There are Jedis, people who practice a completely fictitious faith. Like, I'm going to say more fictitious because, yeah, they're all kind of, from my perspective, fictitious, but this is from something that we should know was created by George Lucas. But there are actually Jedis on dog tags and officially recognized as a religion in the army. So, and I've seen Pastafarian on a dog tag too, but it actually has a purpose that's serious. As far as what should be on the dog tag. So, unless you're seriously a Pastafarian and follow the Flying Spaghetti Monster, seriously, I would not put that on your dog tags. But the fact that you can, that no one can exert any pressure on you to have your dog tags a certain way, that is a great step forward, because when my sergeants saw no religious preference on my dog tags, they had problems with it. And they let me know that they had problems with it. And they let me know that in order to order new dog tags, that would be coming out of my pay. And that I needed to get new ones. So, yeah. If anyone has any more questions about anything that I've said in these videos that were completely just made for Cehbeach's edification, comment below. I'll try to answer. Later.